What is U.S. Soccer play on, and why did the Federation feel like it was important to execute this campaign?
So U.S. Soccer's Play On campaign is truly bringing together the experts across the Federation to be able to provide the best practices and guidelines as soon as our players across the country can resume playing amidst COVID-19.
And why did the Federation feel like it was important to take the lead?
U.S. Soccer is, without question, the leader in health and safety across the United States, and quite honestly, has been leading globally in the sport of soccer. And from back in our heading restrictions to recognize to recover, a platform that is targeting the health and safety of our sport, from players, coaches, referees. Play On is essentially the next step. And I think that our member associations, our players, our parents, our coaches, our referees look to United States Soccer to be able to provide them those guidelines.
So within the grassroots soccer recommendations, what is the process for return to play?
Well, first and foremost, the process should be guided by your local, state, and federal guidelines. And in no way does U.S. Soccer want to supersede that. And so everyone in their home market should make sure that they understand those guidelines. And with that being said, the process to return to play encompasses 5 phases. In those 5 phases, there's reasons why, there's a duration of time, there's steps that quite honestly requires a collaborative approach from all of us to make sure that we can be compliant, we can follow the guidelines in unprecedented times.
Why don't you just outline the 5 phases?
Yeah. So the 5 phases in regards to Play On encompass from phase 0, which essentially means zero activity. It's a stay at home. It's what we've been a part of over the last several months. And the reason why it's phase 0 is so that everyone understands that we really want everyone to heed the advice of their state and local authorities. Phase 1 is when we can start training in small groups. And in phase 1, we've outlined suggested 4 to 6 week period of time to allow compliance. We recognize that there's young players. We recognize that there's new habits that everyone has to get used to. But we also want to be able to provide environments that there are small groups so that we can isolate and track players and make sure that no one gets sick. But also allow the processes to be able to be implemented in a very refined and accurate way. Lastly, in phase 1, and it's extremely important for everyone to understand, is that we want 4 to 6 weeks so that our players are conditioning and have a right amount of time to be able to prevent any injuries. That 4 to 6 window is extremely important for coaches to follow and for parents and players to understand that there's an amount of patience before you get back into really playing competitively. So phase 2 is when we start having full team trainings. And those full team trainings are still while maintaining social distancing, still while wearing PPE and masks, short of when they're stepping on the field and training and being physically active, making sure that they're following all the mitigation guidelines that have been laid out, including from screening and making sure that no one who is sick is arriving to the fields, and all those things are being done in advance. But full team training is a point where our whole team can come together. They're not playing competitively. However, they're able to pass the ball back and forth with each other, go through the drills that the coaches and technical staff are providing to our players. And again, there's a suggested period of time of about 3 to 5 weeks because we know that we are in warmer weather in the summer. But additionally, we all recognize that the symptoms that come along with COVID typically present within 14 days. And so we want to make sure that we're building not only a period of time so that if something were to occur, we've addressed it and isolated that group, but again, most importantly, is to make sure that we're preventing any injuries, making sure that our players are acclimated to the environmental conditions from heat, allowing coaches to have time to implement the processes and best practices of COVID-19. So there's really a holistic approach with regards to how we're looking at those phases. So phase 3 of Play On, again, recognizing that each state and each area across the country may be in different phases. But again, really, really important that everyone is following the same process from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But phase 3 is one where we're recommending and guiding that competitions, and more specifically local competitions, can take place. And those local competitions should maintain COVID-19 mitigation measures, including hygiene, screening, the wearing of PPE, meaning wearing masks in all areas short of training and in competition. Additionally, traveling to the game should be really between parents and those that are living in the same environments, making sure that no one is sick in advance of those competitions. And definitely without large scale of mass tournaments, avoidance of overnight stay for games where teams are staying in hotels. Those things should not be taking place in phase 3. But competition between teams with the implementation of all the mitigation factors is what phase 3 looks like. Phase 4 is obviously the phase where we all want to be. We recognize that that's something that we're most used to. And phase 4 is when COVID-19 is no longer a significant threat, not only to soccer, but to our greater public health across the United States. And when we get to phase 4, obviously we'll all be much more educated on COVID-19, educated about all of our responsibilities to each other and to the public health, but hopefully to the sport of soccer. With regards to Play On, it's extremely important that no child, no player is feeling pressured or anxious to have to participate. What we want is the youth players to be very comfortable. We want to make sure that our clubs, our coaches provide the right environment for them. And at no point in time should a player feel pressured or be pressured by their teammates. The reality is we have a responsibility to each other. And each person and each player is going to find their comfort level with regards to returning to play. And U.S. Soccer is here to support them, make sure that the clubs and the parents and players all have the information and the guidance to be able to support them.
What are some of the precautions players and coaches should take when attending team activities?
So the precautions that coaches, parents, and players should take with regards to return to activity, specifically in phase 1, are several factors. Many of which we've been watching over on the news over the last several months. But it starts with screening. First and foremost, make sure that you don't have any symptoms. And that you haven't developed any symptoms. Likely, you're going to be a part of a screening process that is going to be daily. Again, something that when you return back to school is going to be implemented. But a screening process, getting used to wearing a mask from home all the way to training, and having that mask on, maintaining social distancing, meaning 6 feet between yourself and your teammates, which may feel awkward at first, but that's why we have that period of time, is so that we can refine that and make sure that young kids and coaches can understand some of the dynamics. Additionally, hygiene. Washing your hands frequently, bringing some hand sanitizer and clipping it on your backpack, getting dressed before you go to training so that when you arrive, your cleats are on, your shin guards are on, so that we can minimize some of those interactions. And then lastly, be able to sanitize your ball, sanitize any of the equipment, so that you can go right into training and get a good, good small group training in phase one, and be able to get back home safe.
How should equipment be cleaned?
So the equipment can be cleaned in several ways. Either the coaches or the clubs take full responsibility for the cleaning. We recommend a specific solution at a percentage of alcohol of 70% alcohol. Those cleaning it should be wearing appropriate PPE, whether it be gloves and a mask, and cones, obviously equipment that is of high use, meaning a lot of players are going through that, especially equipment that may be touched. So specifically goal posts, cones, balls, those types of equipment that potentially can be touched by someone's hands are the ones that we want to make sure that they're cleaned frequently, before a training, if you can during a training, and then after training for the next group.
Parents or other spectators be watching practices and games?
As far as parents and other spectators, first and foremost, if you're a parent that is a high-risk individual and you know what those high-risk situations are, we want to make sure that we bring awareness to that. We never want to expose undue risk to any parent. At the same time, we want to make sure that our parents feel like the processes and policies are being followed by the clubs. Some clubs may have areas that parents can go to while maintaining social distancing. There may be another option of parents sitting in their cars, so that they can maintain social distancing and eliminate any exposure in that regard. But those would be the guidelines that we would suggest.
Is it safe to carpool with other players or families to attend team activities?
Yeah. As far as carpooling to training or to larger group trainings, the recommended guidance is that single family carpools are in place, unless you have been around that family for over 14 days and no one has had symptoms. But the guidance is that one parent and family members within the same household are typically carpooling. We recognize that may be a challenge, especially as some parents potentially may be going back to work. But the reality is we want no one to get in a car with symptoms, and we want to make sure that we can minimize the exposure as best possible. If you do have to carpool, we suggest that you wear a mask. We minimize the number of young kids and parents in the car to try to maintain as much social distancing as possible.
How will social distancing principles impact the activities on the field?
As far as activities on the fields and training, it's going to be different, especially in phase one. There's going to be small groups trainings where you're going to have to maintain your social distancing. Our coaching staff at US Soccer are providing different examples of training modules that coaches can implement that take into account social distancing. So we're really excited about sharing that across the country. But it's going to be different. It's going to be very much an individual type of experience. But still, the game of soccer, what is so special about it is that it's played at our feet. That our game is about getting touches on a ball with your feet, being able to build strength, being able to build speed, and having that technical capacity. So I think it's important to make sure that young kids understand that they could still go out and have fun and still get better and improve their game while having the social distancing. And I think soccer is positioned at a good place that our young kids' skill sets, their ability to get better, their touches on the ball can take place with these individualized trainings.
The whole team be training at the same time? Should they be trying to practice in groups? What's the protocol as we enter phase one?
In phase one, it is small training. We're suggesting 9 players maximum with 1 coach, but maintaining social distancing. either on a large field where all of them are on one large field, or you could have 9 players plus 1 coach on half a field, or 9 players and 1 coach on another half of the field in regulation size. Those two groups should never mix. We want to make sure that we keep them separate. But again, being able to create areas in that field that allows different technical skills, agility, speed, strength, passing, but in that method. In regards to players or coaches wearing masks on the field, what we are guiding our players is that in any area of physical activity, meaning training or in competition, that masks do not need to be worn. The reason why we've guided that is with discussions with FIFA, discussions with other sports, is that the recommendation is that we do not want to have any player potentially impair their vision while they're playing, have any difficulty breathing or creating any sort of additional anxiety component. At the same time, if a player feels that they need to wear a cloth face covering or a mask, we're not saying that they cannot wear it. But we want to make sure that we do not incur additional injuries. We want to make sure that young kids are feeling comfortable and free, but also highlighting the fact that our game is a game that is spread out. Our game is a game that is played at players' feet. And so we feel that the outdoor activities, our ability to play the game in space, that risk of COVID is a little bit more minimized.
And for coaches and other participants?
As far as coaches and participants at trainings or at competitions, wearing masks and following state and local and federal guidelines should be in place. So therefore, we would ask that coaches that are on the bench, as well as the players that are not playing, maintain social distancing and wear a mask until they're on the field and participating. Additionally, parents on the sidelines, our guidance is for them to all be wearing masks, maintain social distancing, and we recognize that this is going to be a different element for all of us, but it's not just soccer. It's going to be how you go to the grocery store, how you go back to work, and so U.S. Soccer is providing those same principles. So as far as players bringing their own equipment to matches, each environment may be different. One option is that each player brings their own ball, disinfects their ball, potentially if they have a different color shirt or bib, that they bring that and come with that, and then go home and disinfect their own. Or the club provides all the balls and bibs, and the club disinfects and cleans them all. So I think both those options are available, but recognizing the player's responsibility, the club's and coach's responsibility in all this is really the most important.
What is the guidance on interaction with players?
Yeah, so as far as interactions between players and coaches, first and foremost, the environment has to be fun. The environment has to be a positive environment, and the club, the coaches, the parents, all can be a part of making sure that our kids are having fun, while recognizing that we're all going through this social distancing and in this period of time of COVID-19. As far as team huddles and celebrations, I think everyone can be creative, and first and foremost, we want kids to celebrate their achievements and their accomplishments, but they can do them without high fives, and they can do them without necessarily hugging each other. So can they become creative and create big circles? Can they celebrate in ways that maintain social distancing? At the core of all this is that we want to make sure that we're protecting each other, that we're responsible for each other as we're playing the game that we love. And so the celebrations I leave it to the kids' imagination while maintaining that social distancing. As far as huddles and team conversations, coaches can make sure that they spread their players out, that their ability to have team huddles, also step on the field before matches, can all be done with social distancing. So the message is that we want them to maintain the beauty of the game, maintain the fun aspect, but please do it in a way that maintains the social distancing and really protecting not only our players, but our referees, our coaches, our parents, and our game. And at one point, we'll come out of this, but I think we're also going to come out of it much better. U.S. Soccer's play on guidelines and specifically recommendations are exactly that. We understand that across the country, each part of the country may be going into or out of different phases. Our purpose is really to be a guide and provide really good recommendations for our clubs, our coaches, our parents, our players, our referees, so that collectively there's a resource that everyone can look to and utilize and implement, but implement in a very responsible way, so that our players are protected, our coaches are protected, our referees and our parents, and that the sport of soccer is seen as a responsible sport that is still maintaining the beauty of the game, still allowing kids to grow and develop, have fun, and play a sport that they love. And at the end, that is really what U.S. Soccer's play on recommendations are.